Krista here from Moms Find Truth, and today we're going to ask the question, is gentle parenting good parenting? Stay tuned. Who are not aware of gentle parenting, it is a parenting style that is being promoted quite a bit right now on many social platforms, and it sounds really good. But the question is, if you look underneath, is it biblical? And that's what we're going to be talking about today. So before we get started, I want to done some research into this. In doing that, I ran across quite a few resources talking about a lot of aspects of parenting, and came to find out that in today's society, parenting has been divided into 4 general categories. So there's different terms used depending on where you look, but it's still the same 4 general ideas. So there's the unattached, uninvolved type parent. That is, it might be a parent who is there, but just doesn't care to be involved, just kind of does their own thing. It might be a parent, who's a workaholic, just, kind of lets others take care of their kids, doesn't really get involved by choice. It might be, a parent did illegal activity, ended up in jail, involved in drugs, whatever the case may be, and others are having to take care of the kids. So there's a lot of different situations where this could be applicable. And I think we're all aware that's not great. And so before I move on to the next type of parent, there's 2 scales, fluctuating scales that are used. And again, different verbiage is used depending on where you're getting your information, but it's basically one scale is how involved is the parent with the child, how much they communicate, take part in their day-to-day life, try to develop a relationship. And then the other scale is how high of expectations does the parent have for their child. So uninvolved parenting is low involvement, obviously, and low expectations, because often at the end of the day, they're not really expecting much of their kids because they're not taking part in their kids' lives. So they're not really giving that much thought to it at all. So then still low expectations, but higher involvement is permissive parenting. And that is when the parent is trying to develop a relationship, is involved in the kids' day-to-day lives, but is trying to do it more along the lines of a friend and buddy, not a parent-child. So they don't have high expectations of their kids, often because they don't want to do what's necessary to enforce those expectations, to enforce their authority or consequences or anything like that. So then if you shift involvement back down, but shift expectations up, you have authoritarian parenting, which is you will meet high expectations. You will do what's right. You will do what I say. It's in more of a command dictator type way. And there's not a lot of emphasis built on building a relationship or communication, relating to the child, getting involved truly in the child. It's more standing over the child, looking down, commanding. But then if you take both of those points of measurement and you shift them both up, so you have high expectations and high involvement, then you have authoritative. Bit confusing, very similar name to the last one. But that is the general population, including myself, agrees is a good spectrum to be in. Because again, it's not like each and every parent fits exactly into a precise mold within one of these four categories. Within each of these four categories, there is a spectrum, and there is a host of different, more minute opinions fitting within this category. So essentially, we see the benefit, we want the relationship aspect with our children and the involvement, but not at the expense of the expectations and teaching them what's right and directing them on the right path. And we want to have the high expectations and direct them on the right path, but not at the expense of the relationship. So it's fine. Authoritative parenting is finding that middle ground between those two extremes. Now, gentle parenting fits into authoritative parenting. Those who are doing gentle parenting are striving to keep their children on the right path and are trying to have high expectations for their children. And they are also trying to communicate with their children and be involved in their children and create that relationship with their children. So as we are getting started on diving into gentle parenting and my thoughts on it, right out the gate, some red flags that I want to put out there. And these red flags are applicable to a lot of different ideas that are out today. And just because these red flags exist does not mean that it's a bad idea or that it should be written off. My mom would always say, sometimes you run across red flags, and sometimes it needs to be a brick wall that it stops you. Sometimes it's just a cause to pause. You need to pause. You need to think about it. Don't rush through. Stop and pray about it. Research it some more. Just let it be a cause to pause. And then after you've done your due diligence with research, seeking peace from the Lord, progress from there. So the first things I want to cover are just some red flags that are just good, I think, to keep in the back of your mind. So the first one is that the originators of gentle parenting were not Christians. So again, it's a red flag. It's a cause to pause. Because have I learned some amazing things from non-Christians? Absolutely. And as I'm going to communicate as we go through this, I think there's some great things to be learned from gentle parenting. But when an entire philosophy, a parenting philosophy, is built around an idea originating from a non-Christian, that is a red flag or cause to pause. Because ultimately, our role as parents is to be caretakers of the children that God gave us temporarily. These children are God's children, and He's given them to us for us to raise, to serve Him. So we are caretaking His children, and our job is to train them up in the way they should go so that they will serve Him. So that entire role is based on receiving this gift from God to raise up to follow Him. It's all about directing to Christ, directing back to Christ. So then if the philosophy that we're using in raising and directing these children back to Christ is based on the idea of a non-Christian, it's a little shaky of an idea in my mind. So again, red flag, cause to pause. The next red flag is that society as a whole accepts, embraces gentle parenting with open arms. And as I mentioned in my last podcast, anything that society is embracing with open arms is something I'm skeptical of. Because as time passes, I am finding there to be less and less topics in life. Marriage, parenting, just life in general, that I find I align with society. Usually, me and society are on opposite points of view, as it were. And I think that's exactly what God tells us is going to happen. The world is going to be getting darker and darker. We are to be pursuing the light. So if the way we live our life is not becoming more and more distant from the way that the world is living theirs, we have a problem. This does not in and of itself prove gentle parenting wrong. It is a cause to pause. And then the third and final red flag is that this entire parenting method has been encapsulated in extremely nice sounding terms. Gentle parenting. I mean, like, what does that even mean if you say, I'm not a fan of gentle parenting? I mean, you literally can't say you're not a fan of this type of parenting style without saying the phrase, I'm not a fan of gentle parenting. And then if you dig deeper into gentle parenting, there's a lot of phrasing that's used very repetitively that is purposely named with very agreeable terms. And I see that, again, as a thread throughout society right now. If you think about a pro-choice, of course we want people to have choices. We don't want to be anti-choice. Sounds so bad. Or we need to be accepting. Of course, you're not saying that you need to be accepting of sin, because that doesn't sound so great. You need to be accepting. If you're not accepting of certain groups of people, then you are excluding them, and that's not nice. You should be able to love whoever you want to love. All of these things sound so nice, and can so easily, if you get drawn into the propaganda of it all, can make you feel so guilty to say, no, I don't agree with this. Because by saying you don't agree with such nice terms, it makes you sound bad. So again, just because something has nice terms does not mean it's bad. But when it was originated by a non-Christian, accepted with open arms by society, and is purposely couched in very nice, feel-good terms that are really hard to say you don't like, it's just a red flag, a big red flag, a big cause to pause. Let's dig a little bit deeper on this one.